Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then, you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since I discovered Spotify for Podcasters, I feel like I've been having a lot more connection with my listeners through the Q&As and polls. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. Hi everyone, I'm Amber Rose, the religious hippie, and welcome to A Catholic's Perspective. For those of you just finding this podcast, let me tell you a little about myself. I was born and raised a cradle Catholic until I fell away from the church for 8 years. I just recently came back to the church, and I could not be happier with where I am today. I am currently a junior in college, and I'm studying graphic design. I am an ambassador for multiple amazing Catholic Christian companies, and I love working with all of them. Now, some of you may already know me from my popular religious hippie social media channels, such as TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I have all kinds of Catholic content on there, so don't forget to go check those out. So the reason I wanted to start a podcast was so that I'd be able to have a longer format which people could listen to from wherever they are. I particularly wanted to address issues that young Catholics face today in the secular world, and I want to do that by providing information along with commentary and even a little of my own opinion. I can't lie, from time to time I might be discussing very controversial issues, and some will find my opinions unappealing. But I do this out of my faith and service to God. We must keep communicating with each other, respecting each other, and put each other on the path to sainthood. I think you'll enjoy the podcasts coming up, and I thank you for being here with me. Hey everybody, welcome back to my podcast. Today I have a special guest with me, Deacon Sergio. He is from the Diocese of Joliet and is currently serving in Bensonville. Welcome.
Hi, Amber. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on here. So I guess why don't we give the listeners a little background about you and your mission and that kind of thing?
All right. Yes. Yes, I'm a permanent deacon. I was ordained in 2018 here in the Diocese of Joliet, and I'm actually the youngest permanent deacon in our diocese. I'm a very young, 41 years old. But that's something that our diocese is trying to go with the younger men, calling the younger men to step forward to the permanent diaconate. But yes, it's a very special calling that the Lord has given me, and I prayerfully answer that calling with great fear. But here I am, and it's been a very long journey to get to where I am at right now as a permanent deacon.
That's awesome. What made you want to go into religious life?
It all started as a teenager. I guess actually a very young child. That's where I felt that I was being called to something. I just didn't know exactly what it was that God was calling me to. But I remember as a very young child, I would tell my parents and other people in my family that I wanted to be a priest, and I just felt like this calling to the religious life, to serving in church. I was pretty much raised by my grandparents, and just growing up, I would pray the rosary every evening with my grandparents. I would sleep in my grandparents' bedroom. And I just remember we would watch Mass at night just about every day on television. And I just felt drawn to that. I really liked that. But just, growing up, I began to hang around with the wrong crowd, and I lost all of that, and I forgot what God really, who God was, is. And yeah, just being in high school, just being involved with with the wrong crowd. I got involved with the street gangs, the drugs and the alcohol, and all of the violence that comes with that lifestyle. And it got to the point where God didn't exist anymore in my life, where there was no God. And I guess I would consider myself an atheist at that time, as I wanted nothing to do with God. I was my own God. The world was my God. Yeah. So but yeah, just growing up as a teenager, being with the wrong crowd, got myself into a lot of trouble. And me and my younger brother, I remember, we would often get into these fights out in the streets with rival gangs, and they would even come to my house to look for me and my brother. And I remember, one evening when the rival gangbangers, they showed up at my house, and they broke all of our windows. They broke the windows from our vehicles, and
Wow.
I remember, yeah, my mother just screaming and crying and just begging me and my brother to just stop. And I remember me and my brother, we were very angry. We wanted to go outside and get these guys. And my mom, she stood at the door. I remember she stood at the door and just begged us not to go out. And I remember that night very, very vivid, how it just happened, the tears in my mom's eyes, and just begging us to stop and just to turn our lives around. And I remember pushing my mom out of the way, and just told her, straight out, don't you ever get in my way. Life was just was all about violence. And me being in high school, I really didn't go to do the work, to study, to become someone. I pretty much went to high school to just party, to be with the friends, to do the drugs. And it was in high school where a good friend of mine began to talk to me about God.
Oh.
And I even gave him the nickname Flanders. If you ever watched The Simpsons,
Yeah.
he's a religious guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And it's so interesting too, because because in high school, a lot of the times you don't hear about, like, there's small conversions that can happen in high school, but usually high school is where you fall away from Christ.
Yes.
So it's interesting that that's actually where you started coming kind of in contact with God a little bit more.
Yes. That was the beginning of everything. And with my friend, his name is Ricky. We became good friends in high school, and he would always talk to me about God, but it really wouldn't stick. He would always say that God had a plan for my life. That God was so real and everything, and he would always invite me to these youth groups, and I would always come up with an excuse not to go. And I remember one afternoon I ran into him in school, and he was like, Sergio, let's go to the youth group today. And that day I was in a very bad mood. That morning I had gotten into a big argument with my high school girlfriend, and it's a long story, but I just didn't want to talk to anyone. And my friend Ricky, he said, let's go to the youth group today. And I told him, Ricky, I'm tired of hearing the God, the God talk. I don't want to hear it no more. If you don't get out of my face, these are the words that I told him. If you don't get out of my face, I'm going to break your grill, which means your teeth. Mm-hmm. Back down a little bit. And he's like, all right. I won't bother you again if you go to this youth group today. And just something inside me just told me to say yes, to go. So I accepted. I went, and we made plans, for me to pick him up at his house. And this was back in the 90s. And I drove one of the big cars, a 1989 Caprice Classic. It was one of the big gangster cars. Yeah, a big gas guzzler. And I arrived at his house to pick him up, and he was all happy. I saw him coming out, and because I'm going to church. This gangbanger's going to church, and he gets in the car, and I was like, "Where's this church at?" And he's like, "Oh, no. Don't worry about it. An hour away, just drive. I'll tell you where to go." I was like, well, I don't have gas in my car. It was on little empty. I don't even have money to put some gas in there. And right. So I was like, let me use $5 for gas. And back then, $5 would give you 5 gallons of gas. It's not like today. $5 gives you a half a tank, half a gallon. I mean. Yeah. So Ricky said, "I'm sorry, I don't have any money to give you." So me, I'm thinking like I'm off the hook. We're not going to go to church. I already accepted your offer. You're going to leave me alone now. So he says one thing. He's like, "No, we're going to go to church. We're going to go to this youth. I've been waiting for this moment, and it's finally here. We're going." So he convinced me to drive on an empty tank. And we get to this youth group, and it was a Catholic charismatic youth group. The charismatic movement is where they're clapping and they're singing and they're praising the Lord. And me, I've never seen that before in my life. And I was wondering what's going on, what's all this nonsense? Why are they jumping around? Why they're all loud? And I remember telling Ricky these words. I was like, what do these people smoke? Because I want some of that. Yeah. So he's like, no, this is what they do. This is, they're charismatics, and they sing and they clap, and they're a very lively group. So I was like, okay, but let's sit in the back. I want nothing to do with them. Yeah. So I'm in the back with Ricky, and they begin to give the teaching for the evening. And I wasn't even paying attention to what they were talking about. Being a teenager, I was just looking around to see, who I could recruit for the gangs or whatever, that's where my mind is at. Yeah. So after the service, after the youth group ended, I'm walking out with Ricky, and I tell Ricky, so where's your God? I thought God was going to change my life today, and he had a blessing for me. It's like, this is a waste of my time. Let's get out of here. And Ricky put his head down. He didn't look. And he said, you know what? It's like, maybe God didn't touch you today, but I know God has a plan for your life. And we walked out, and this one older lady, she chased me out into the parking lot, and speaking in Spanish and everything. She's like, hey, joven, which means, young guy, she's like, stop, what's your name? This is the first time I've seen you. And she's like, well, I saw you walk in, and I was just praying for you the whole time. So I asked her attention. And it's probably because I looked like a gangbanger. I was all bald. I had a shaved head. I had this very long tail. I was dressed like a thug, like a game banger.
Right.
Yeah. So she began to talk to me and tell me that God has a plan for my life, that God loves me. And me, I'm thinking, okay, here we go again with the God loves you talk. And she said, when in prayer, when I was praying for you, God was telling me to give you something. And I'm thinking, what could this old lady possibly give me? And she opened up her little purse, and she brings out a $5 bill.
Oh.
Yeah, a $5 bill. And I'm like, there's no way. How does she know that I asked Ricky for $5 before we left? He was with me the whole time. It's not like he told her to give me $5. But at that moment, I was feeling something inside. At that moment, I knew that the Jesus Christ that died for us on the cross 2,000 years ago knew my life. At that moment, I realized.
Prior to this, I don't mean to interrupt, but prior to this, were you born and raised Catholic or anything, or were you just?
Yes. I was born and raised Catholic, and I did the prayers I with my grandparents, but I didn't live my Catholic faith as a teenager. Okay. I drifted away, but here I am having this encounter with God.
It's amazing that she was it's always interesting how people are messengers for Christ without knowing that they're messengers for Christ. Like, she probably had no idea that it was significant to you. She was like, here's just $5 that I have. Like, I don't know what you need it for, but there you go. And she had no idea.
She had no idea. And at that moment, that teenager me, I just fell on my knees, and I remember I began to cry. I began to cry like a little baby, because at that moment I was feeling something that I never felt before. The love of a father. Me growing up, yes, I had my father, but he really wasn't there. He didn't give the affection that a child needs from a father. And at that moment, I was feeling it from God. God was filling an emptiness that I had in my life, that I was trying to fill with the whole gang life, with the drugs, with the alcohol, and all of the things that I did in the street. All of that garbage was filling my life. And here I am having an encounter with Jesus, and Jesus saying, no, I'm all that you need. And that's the love of God, that I wasn't in search of God, that God found me in my mess. Right. God found me in my sin, that God already had a plan for my life. And here I am face to face with him.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Did you use the $5 to get gas?
I'm sure I did, because I was on an empty tank. Yeah.
I miss when gas was only $5.
Yes. Yeah. But Ricky, he was so right that God had a plan for my life. And God has a plan for everyone's life. Everyone has a calling. Everyone is created, with a purpose in life. You're not made by accident. And this is why life is so precious. This is why every child that is conceived, that is in the womb of a mother, has a purpose ready, has a calling. This is why we have to defend life at all times. Yeah, we have to defend life at all times, because when we destroy, we're destroying. We're destroying someone that has a calling, someone that is being loved by God,
Right.
someone that could transform the world, that can change the world.
More priests. People always say
Yes,
like, oh, there's a dwindling priesthood, or to religious orders in general, there's a dwindling number. And I'm like, because
yeah,
of abortion. I mean, how many of those babies would have become priests and nuns and deacons? And it's just one of those things where you realize like, okay, well, where are all the good doctors? Probably aborted. Where are all the
yes,
good people? Probably aborted. Like,
yes,
so it's interesting to see how it works. And so at what point did you decide that becoming a deacon was your calling?
yes. Um, I had this moment where I was at excuse me, where I was at my parish. At that time, I was serving at St. Alexis Parish, which is the other parish in Bensonville. And at that time, I was director of religious education at that parish. And I was waiting for our pastor, because I was going to have a meeting with him, but he happened to have a baptism right before the meeting. So I was just sitting there in the church, just watching him baptize this baby. And at that moment, I was just feeling something inside, God saying, I want you to do this too. And I began to pray about it. And I shared it with my pastor at that time. And he said, don't be afraid. If you're feeling something, God is calling you to something. And I began to just pray about the diaconate and just this whole life. And I began to learn about it and what it means to be a deacon. The deacon, the word deacon means a servant, to serve. And that's how I see life. I was made, I was put here to serve others. And that's what love is all about. True love. And especially right now during the time of Easter, our readings for Mass from the Gospel are taken from the Gospel of John, and the Gospel of John has a lot to say about love. What does love mean? And nowadays we really misuse the word love. Just yesterday when I was driving, I thought, and I've seen it before. It says love is love. I was like, what? That is so weak. What do you mean love is love? It is more bigger than that. Love is a lifestyle. Love is not an emotion. It is not a feeling. Love never dies.
Love is willing the good of another, even if
Yes.
that means that they're going to hate you for it.
Oh, yes. But when the world hates you, remember that it hated Christ first.
The Beatitudes are very important.
Yes, they are. We misuse that word where people no longer know what that means. I love pizza. I love baseball. But what does the word love really mean? What is the word that Jesus uses to love one another? Agape.
I also think it's interesting because we've become so desensitized to so many things, and love is one of those things we become desensitized to. As a young adult, watching, TV shows like Downton Abbey and things like that, in that time period, even though I know it's fictional, but in that time period, to say you loved somebody was like huge. It was basically like a marriage proposal. It was a huge deal. Nowadays, people just throw it around like crazy, and I'm like, no wonder my generation is craving love, but they don't know what love is.
Yes. Yeah. And love is to serve others. That's what it means, to lay down your life for a friend, for others, for your neighbor. That's what love is. Are you willing to lay down your life for a slice of pizza? You can't love pizza, right? Like that, right? But yes, and that's the thing that the world is lacking right now. That it has become all about themselves. Especially in the pro-choice movement. It's my body, my decision. That is the most selfish thing that I've heard.
Yeah.
That is not love. Love is saying, okay, I have this child. My life is about to change, yes. But here I am, I'm going to give what I have to this child. That is love. Pro-choice, my body, my decision, the opposite of love. Love is about others, not about you. That's what love
Exactly.
is. Yes.
Except unfortunately, I think a lot of the times, because of the narrative that we have these days, my generation, along with other words, we don't know what love means anymore. And when somebody tries to tell them, oh, love is willing the good of another, or, love is laying down your life for another, those types of things, they don't, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like they've been brainwashed. They don't believe that that's like the actual purpose, of it. And so they start kind of being like, oh, that can't be it because that doesn't make me happy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, it's not about you,
Yeah.
And it's always interesting to me how I see it work, because at the end of the day, with Catholicism especially, it's not about us, it's about God. It's about what we owe God. It's about what we are due to God. And it's not about how we feel. It's about us, giving our creator what we have. And even if we don't feel like it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We're called to a life of service. Everyone is. Not only priests, not only, deacons, everyone is called to serve, to give. We're faced with, we have a gospel that demands every bit of us. Not just part-time, not just being a Catholic on Sundays for an hour. You're being called to be a Catholic, to give of yourself every day,
Right.
every hour. For me, I'm a deacon every day. Not
It's not just
just,
a part-time job.
it's not just a part-time job, I'm a deacon every day. Me being a permanent deacon, we have the option to wear a clergy shirt like I'm wearing now with a collar. Some deacons choose not to wear it. And I think that's pretty sad. Because how would people know that you're a deacon?
Right.
You're ordained to serve, right? And me wearing this clergy shirt, I've had a lot of encounters with people out in the streets. People coming up to me, can you pray for me? Can you bless my car? Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you hear me? And I remember, especially during the pandemic, when it first hit, I was grocery shopping, and I was wearing my clergy shirt, and I was out in the store, and this older lady, she comes up to me, and she was very afraid of, with everything that was going on with COVID, and she didn't know what was going to happen, and so she asked if I could pray for her in the grocery store,
Right.
in the fruit department. And I'm praying. I have my hands over her, and I'm praying for her, blessing her, and I get the attention of everyone else that's there. And then I have a line of people.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah, a line of people asking for prayer inside a supermarket.
It's interesting how when you dress for your position, you get people who need you.
Yes,
Isn't that interesting how people never would have noticed if you were wearing like a regular t-shirt and whatever, they never would have known you were a deacon.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. So it's very important. It's very important to, it's not like I could walk around with a sign and say, like I'm a deacon. But wearing this, it shows people who I am.
Right.
I'm here to serve you. go to like say like Target, you look for the people wearing the red shirts, or
Right.
Home Depot, you look for the people that are wearing the orange,
Aprons,
what
yeah.
do you call them? Yeah,
Yeah.
aprons.
It's always
Um,
interesting because I know for a fact, like whenever I see a priest wearing a cassock, or a deacon, or even brothers at one of my church wears the cassock, and I'm just like, that that is the man that I want to go and like hear mass from and give my confession to,
yeah,
and ask to pray for me, because I feel like he takes his job seriously, because
yes,
he's dressed for it, and he knows that the way he dressed has an effect on the people, his community.
yeah, yes, yeah,
Dress for the
and he
job you take.
believes who he is. Yeah, yeah, he believes that he is a priest, that he is a deacon. Yes, you for the sometimes when I wear this, and when people think of priests and deacons, they always think of like weddings, the baptisms, the first communions, all the happy moments. But there are some days where this job, where this calling will rip you to shreds, like Christ. There are moments where you're in a hospital, and you're with a family as their loved one is taking their last breath.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there's days where I come home, and I'm just beat down.
And also spiritual
And
warfare has to
it
be
could be,
crazy.
oh yes, very, 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 very crazy. And sometimes I like to call this shirt my prison uniform, because I'm a
I
prisoner of Christ.
love it.
Um, yes, and I love it. I love wearing this, and I wear it proudly. That
Mhm.
this is who God called me, to be. Um, but yes, it's a beautiful calling. It is a calling that has many joys, many difficult moments. But in this calling, you get to witness everything that Jesus witnessed. You get to
Amazing.
see, the miracles. You get to see the tough moments. But that's what we're called. We're called to do what Jesus did. And sometimes there's people that don't believe that. On Saturday I gave a talk at a retreat, and I was talking about that. That we're called to do what Jesus did.
Right.
Um, and then I asked this question: if Jesus said that we can do whatever he did, how many of you guys believe you can raise someone from the dead? And people looked at me all with a big question mark, like, okay, Deacon, I think you're going too far with this, Deacon. I think you're going a little crazy. He's like, yes. How many? This is a serious question. How many of you guys believe you can raise someone from the dead? Raise your hand. And no one was raising their hand. Then I asked them, how many of you guys believe the gospel of Jesus Christ is real? And everyone's raising their hand, and I'm like, well, you guys believe in the gospel, but you guys believe that you can't raise someone from the dead.
Right.
And then I asked them, I was like, let's think a little bit more. Let's think outside the box. What does that mean, raise someone from the dead? Someone that's living a life of depression, of abuse. If you see them, they're like the walking dead.
Yeah,
There is no life in them.
that's
And when you
accurate.
can, yeah, and when you can be Jesus for that person, when you can put your arm around that person and say, I'm here to walk with you. I'm here to pick you up. You're raising someone from the dead. You're. So
Right.
if you can do that, you can raise the dead too.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to look at it from those perspectives. And honestly, I feel like everybody looks at certain things black and white, when in reality, it's like, yeah, if somebody were to ask you that question, like, could you raise someone from the dead? Well, literally, like, no. But if you put it in the right context, and you're just like, well, there's tons of people who are spiritually dead, in our world, and we can raise them up, and it's interesting how you put it, because I love that analogy. It really helps with the younger kids, I think, too. Not kids, but, teenagers and young adults too. Because analogies like that would have helped me as well, be like, oh, I can do stuff like that. It's different. Are there any saints or anyone who has helped you along your journey that you still you pray to, or anything like that?
Oh yes, Saint Francis of Assisi.
I love him.
Yeah, he is my favorite saint. And as part of my story, my friend Ricky that brought me to Christ, he was also one of the instruments that kind of took me away from the Catholic faith.
Interesting.
Because Ricky, he in his search and his journey for seeking God, he got involved with the evangelical church.
Oh.
And yes, so he kind of dragged me with him. But I thank the evangelical brothers and sisters, because they introduced me to a more deeper study of Scripture.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yes. And it was in that study where I found my way back to the Catholic Church, because when I began to read and really study Scripture, I just kept bumping into the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. Some of the things that I would read, especially in the letter of James. The letter of James is very Catholic. And it really troubled me. And I asked my pastor these questions when I was in the evangelical church, and he just confused me even more, to the point where I started to do my own research. Right. I ended up finding my way back to the church, and me being a permanent deacon, I am also married. I have my wife, I have my children. And we went on a anniversary weekend to Michigan, and this is talking about St. Francis now. And we were in Kalamazoo, Michigan for the weekend. And that Sunday, I had a spiritual direction meeting, an appointment with Father Ed at St. Peter's in the Loop in downtown Chicago. It's a Franciscan parish. So I had to be back in Chicago by 5 p.m. on Sunday. So we left Kalamazoo early on Sunday, after being there all weekend, and we're driving back to Chicago. And me, I'm a big collector. So when I see antique shops, I have to stop and check it out. So we get off the road, because I see the antique store, and my wife, she loves wine tasting. Yeah, so we stop at a winery as well. First at the winery, and we have a little bit of wine, and me and wine, we really don't mix well. Yeah, so I was like, okay, I think we have to stay here for at least an hour, let the wine, get through before, I could start driving again, right? Yeah, so I take the opportunity to go to the antique shop, and when we walk in, my wife, she sees this Franciscan salt shaker. Yeah, and she said, "This is the cutest thing that I've ever seen. I want to buy it." And I'm looking at it, and it's dirty, it's cracked, it's missing the cap, and it's only the salt shaker. It's missing the pepper. I was like, well, how much does this cost? And it was like $20 something. I was like, no way. I was like, we're not buying that. I was like, I'm not paying $20 for garbage.
Yeah.
And she's all upset. It's like, I want to buy it. It's like, no, and like, just, we'll spend that money on something else. Yeah. So after being there for a good hour, we ended up leaving, and she's all upset because I didn't buy her the salt shaker. And me, I'm feeling like a jerk, I was like, I should have just bought her the salt shaker. It was the anniversary weekend, it would have, made
women have that effect on men.
Yeah. Yeah. So So we're driving and we get to Chicago. We get there a little early. It was probably about 3 o'clock. And we park in the parking garage in downtown. And I tell my wife, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to go inside St. Peter's, and just hang out there and I want to come with." And she was tired, so she stayed in the car, taking a nap. And we walk into the church. I walk into the church, and I'm sitting in a pew, and that's where I usually go for confession. They have confession there every day. And for the first time, I started like really paying attention to all of the artwork. Very beautiful church, a lot of statues and everything. And I start walking around inside the church, and at the front right, St. Peter's, there's a statue of St. Francis of Assisi. And for the longest time, I always thought it was a statue of Jesus. Yeah, so I'm standing in front of St. Francis, and I'm like, "I always thought you were Jesus." and I noticed, and I noticed there was a relic. There's a relic right in front of St. Francis. And I did something for the very first time as a Catholic. I asked for the intercession of a saint.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and for me, that still felt a little weird. Just being involved with the evangelical church and everything. I didn't have a prayer life with Mary, with any saint. It was just me and God. So I was like, okay, so I'm doing this Catholic thing. I might as well try asking a saint for prayer and see what happens. So I put my hand over that relic of St. Francis of Assisi. There's a relic there. And I say, "St. Francis of Assisi, pray for me and my wife," being our anniversary weekend. And right after that, Father Ed walks in, and he's like, "Hey, you're here early." I was like, "Yes, I'm not here." He's like, "Here, I'll take you in right now." So he takes me upstairs of St. Francis, and that's where all the Franciscans live, all the brothers and Franciscan priests. And he takes me to the garden that they have in the roof, and he's showing me all the different plants. And me, I could care less about plants, but I'm pretending like I'm interested. And he's like, "Hey, last time you were here, I was going to give you something, and I totally forgot. But here, you're come with me." So he takes me to his living area, and he brings out this little box, and he said, "This is for you." And me, I'm excited. I love gifts. Yeah, so I opened up the box, and I was like, "There's no way." It was a brand new Franciscan salt and pepper shaker.
Oh, that's so cute.
The same exact ones that my wife just wanted a few hours ago in Michigan.
Can't get any clearer than that of a message.
Yeah, and I was like, "How does this happen?" It's like, and out of all the salt and pepper shakers in the world, here Father Ed is giving me the same exact ones that my wife wanted, brand new.
That's amazing.
Yes, it was a miracle.
Was she happy about it?
She was very happy. Yeah, so, but it gets even crazier because I'm walking out of church after we have our meeting, and it turns out it was the feast day of St. Francis of Assisi as well.
Oh, wow. Well, that's amazing.
Yes.
What a fun story.
Yeah, and I got to know St. Francis, and I found out St. Francis was never a priest. He was a permanent deacon, just like me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yes. And my childhood best friend's name is Francisco, which is Francis.
So there's a lot of parallels going on here.
Yeah.
No, I love that.
Yeah, but this story gets even crazier. If that wasn't crazy enough. Yeah, so this past October, I'm out in Michigan, and I'm driving this big truck for my brother. I have a commercial truck driver's license as well. Yeah, so I'm driving from Michigan back to Illinois, and the middle of the night, and my truck decides to break down. Oh. Yeah, so I immediately get off of the expressway, and as soon as I pull into the first parking lot I see, the truck just dies. And I was like, "Oh boy, here I am by myself. It's in the middle of the night. I called my wife. I was like, I'm not going to make it home tonight. And I'm trying to make arrangements on what to do. So I get out of the truck just to walk around. And I'm thinking, it's like, this place looks very familiar. And I noticed, on the other side of the parking lot, I was like, there's no way. This is the exact same place that me and my wife came, that she wanted the salt shaker.
Oh, that's fun. That's
the
crazy.
Same exact place. Yeah. And across the street, there was a brand new Franciscan hospital that they just built.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the signs.
All the signs. So St. Francis is my favorite saint.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
That's so cool too. It's like usually people only get 1 or 2 signs, but you got a whole bunch. That's awesome.
Yeah, I got a whole bunch. Yeah.
Well, thank you for such an amazing story, and thank you for coming on here to talk about it with everybody. I'm sure everybody will love to hear it. And again, where are you located at if people wanted to visit the church you're at or anything?
Yeah, I'm at St. Charles Borromeo in Bensenville, Illinois.
Very
nice.
And
yes, we have English, Polish, and Spanish mass.
Oh wow.
Yes.
That's pretty neat.
It's very, very colorful parish. All different languages and people here. So I'm in the process of learning Polish. Yeah, so I just downloaded an app to learn Polish. So very difficult language. It's not like Spanish, no. Just the way you see it, that's the way it sounds, but I'm confident that I could pick it up.
That's amazing. Well, I'm sure me and my listeners will be keeping you in our prayers. Thank you so much again,
Yes.
Deacon Sergio, for being on here with us. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Amber.
Of
All
course.
Right,
God
God bless you and your ministry and all that you do.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
And with all of that being said, I hope you guys who listen to this podcast enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye. Do you have questions or comments about today's episode? Email me at thereligioushippie@gmail.com or leave a voice message at anchor.fm/thereligioushippie. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for listening.
'Tis the season to shine with H&M. Discover the holiday collection and find fashionable pieces for your wardrobe or for under the tree. Get inspired and dazzle with this year's glam. From tuxedo styles, bow detailed pieces, impressive prints, and more. From unforgettable looks to unforgettable gifts. With fashion finds to home decor, find it all at H&M. Treat your loved ones and yourself this season. Shop in-store or at hm.com.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please be sure to rate and review this episode. This podcast is produced by Todd Fisher and distributed by Metacortex Publishing. This podcast is copyright. Any previously trademarked or copyright content is used by permission. Information and opinions stated in this podcast should not be construed as medical advice. Please be sure to visit the official website for the International Association of Metatomics at metatomics.org or find us on social media for other unique content.